Gotta be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it.
What we do here is go back.
In 2005, Disney decided that they were going to include a really interesting new perk, a perk that would appeal to a lot of people, Disney's Magical Express.
Some travel light, others don't. But this year, when you stay at a Disney Resort Hotel, you can completely skip baggage claim, and we'll take you and your luggage from Orlando International Airport to your Walt Disney World vacation. For more about Disney's Magical Express complimentary service, visit DisneyWorld.com.
And they knew it was going to be a popular perk because Mears, which was a shuttle service from the airport to the Walt Disney World Resort, was wildly popular. In fact, most people my age who are familiar with taking a bus to Walt Disney World from the airport, what they remember is Mears, not Disney's Magical Express, but that's a conversation for another day. So doing what businesses do, Disney concocted a plan. They were going to partner with Mears. They were going to wrap the buses, rename the service, and call it Disney's Magical Express, offering it to guests of the Walt Disney World Resort hotels for free. It was a fantastic perk. People loved it. Right up until the point when they didn't, because rideshares came along, giving guests the opportunity to come and go with a little bit more flexibility than Magical Express did. And yes, it did come at a price, but it was a price a lot of people were willing to pay because it gave you a little bit more time, a little bit more flexibility. And time is money, people know that. And so by the time 2019 came around, people were like, I don't know about this Magical Express thing. It takes a lot of time, and yeah, it's free, but time is money. I'd rather pay for a rideshare. In fact, some of your favorite bloggers, vloggers, resources out there were saying, if you don't have to go with Magical Express, don't, because you can save so much time if you just get a rideshare. Yes, you gotta pay, but save up the money, it'll be worth it in the end. And for those of you who are like, you know, this is what happens. This is what happens when bloggers and vloggers do their thing. Social media ruins everything. I know you're out there. I know you're probably here for that very reason, given the topic of today's discussion. This wasn't something that happened just because a few people were talking about it and they had a platform or an audience. This was the way that people felt. You could see it in the comment sections. You would hear it when having conversations with people about planning a Disney vacation, hearing what worked and didn't work for them. So this was hardly something that was just talked about by a very specific group of people. It was a big conversation happening amongst people visiting the Walt Disney World Resort. And Disney heard you. They heard all of this chatter. They were paying attention to the number of people who were registering for Magical Express, probably keeping track of people's preferences through things like surveys. And people were saying, I would rather do a rideshare. So at some point before 2022, I'm trying to remember exactly when it happened. I want to say it was like a year in advance. Disney said, you know what? Magical Express, we loved it. We know you loved it, but we know that you prefer other options, so it's going away. And just like clockwork, the second Disney said that they were going this route, all of the same people who were complaining to high heaven about how Magical Express wasn't worth the time, take a rideshare, boom, the script had flipped. All of a sudden, this was the best thing that Disney has ever done, and they can't believe that Disney would take it away. In fact, they were saying, man, if Disney would just offer some sort of paid option, I would be on board because I loved Magical Express. I want you to keep that in mind. People who were upset that Magical Express was going away, the free service was going away, were hoping that Disney would introduce some sort of paid option as an alternative. As it turns out, this isn't the first time that Disney fans have ever asked Disney to charge them for something that was previously free. Now I know that some of you are gonna go, well, there's no way that that's true because no one wants to pay more, but you'd be surprised. Disney fans are a unique bunch. In fact, another one of the very things that Disney fans are looking for saving from, more specifically Lightning Lane, that's what it's currently called, Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass, but before that, Genie Plus, Disney fans were asking for that. I know some of you don't remember and some of you just can't believe it, but especially when Rise of Resistance opened and everyone was like fighting to the death for a boarding group, you know, the whole virtual queue system, which is also something that people wanted because they didn't want to wait in line for 8 hours. I distinctly remember, I was planning a vacation at that time, so I was paying close attention to this. I distinctly remember people being like, man, if only we could pick what time we could ride, I'd pay for that. And Disney heard you and they gave it to you. So, you know, for someone like myself who pays attention to this type of thing, this seems almost a little bit like a trend, almost like, especially when it's in their best interests, Disney is going to give you exactly what you want. So why are we talking about this today? Well, chances are, if you've been on the internet at all in the past week, you've heard a little something about changes happening over at Disney Springs. Now, this is probably a temporary change. But if you've been paying attention, you know that sometimes Disney makes temporary changes and then they're like, actually, we love this. Let's put it in full time, especially when people are asking for it. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself for those of you who aren't like up to speed with what is going on. So basically, Disney decided to change the way that they were doing bus service from Disney Springs. Ultimately, instead of just allowing anyone to jump on a bus to anywhere, they're checking to make sure you have a reservation at the hotel you're trying to get on a bus to get to. So that could mean a reservation because you're staying there. It could mean a dining reservation or some sort of recreation that you have scheduled, you know, like maybe you got a tea time or something like that. Now, I don't have firsthand experience with this because I'm not going. Absolutely not. It's spring break and I'm here all the time. I might be a glutton for punishment, but I do have my limits. But there are a lot of reliable sources out there communicating that this is what is happening at Walt Disney World, and a lot of people are corroborating that by saying that they've talked to the cast members or they've been approached when they're checking in and told this piece of information. Now, word on the street is that this is temporary, just being put in place for this spring break Easter crossover. But the thing that stood out to me when just kind of gathering information about this, like paying attention to what people are saying, is that people love the idea. They don't want anyone who hasn't paid for a night at the hotel to have the privilege of visiting it. Side note, does it bother you to know that that might be how I eat bananas? You know, God forbid someone who's staying at an All-Star comes to your deluxe resort to get a quick service meal. Can they even afford to walk in this hallway? I joke, but this is like something that is discussed all too often in the world of Disney fandom. It's pretty gross, but I don't want to get too far off topic today. Goodness knows I could be ranting about this forever. But all of this chatter, it seems all too familiar. It seems like something that has happened before, and as a result, something has changed. Now, there are people out there who are going to say, well, back in the 80s, you had to show your resort key card to get on a bus. Yeah, that was the 80s, okay? There are a lot of things that happened back in the day that don't happen now because things have improved. Back when Disneyland opened, you had to pay per ride. Sounds a whole lot like Lightning Lane Single Pass, doesn't it? And that was, of course, on top of the price of admission. So, I mean, you know, I said it when we first kicked this discussion off today, be careful what you wish for. And I really do mean it because, you know, there is no shortage of people out there bitching and moaning that Disney doesn't listen. And you know what? I'm one of them. Every now and again, I will say that I don't think Disney has listened to fans. But I will say this. They listen to just what they want to hear and go all in. And if we ignore that because we've got pixie dust in our eyes or whatever, then the only thing that that's going to do is hurt our experience in the end. And you know, as another little side note, Disney fandom is a really toxic place for a long list of reasons. Some of them we kind of touched on today, like the whole status thing because you may or may not be staying at a certain resort. Like, come on, don't tell me that that's not toxic, because it is. But I'm not just talking about it being toxic for the other guests or the people who are in the fandom. I'm talking about how it's kind of toxic for the theme parks themselves, or not kind of toxic, it's actually toxic for the theme parks. This whole like magical thinking thing where people have so much pixie dust in their eyes that they can't see reality, they can't see what's being laid out right in front of them, not ever wanting to hear anything critical or negative about the parks. It's actually chopping the parks off at the knees, making it less of the place that you fell in love with when you first started down this road of being a Disney adult, let's say. And you know, we don't like to talk about that because it's negative and no one wants to talk negative about Disney. But I also think that when we don't look this square in the eyes, we're just making the problem worse. So anyway, when it comes to this change though, when it comes to what this means for the experience that is Walt Disney World, if you're someone who maybe likes to do a little bit of resort hopping, enjoying more of what Walt Disney World has to offer than the one resort that you've decided to stay at, you know, chances are it doesn't mean a whole lot, at least not right now. From everything that we're hearing, this is a temporary change to manage crowds. There are a lot of other people who are speculating as to why this is happening. Like, I've heard some people say it has something to do with safety. That's a bullshit excuse for doing this. Because let's be real here for a second. You have to go through more security to get on a bus and go to a Walt Disney World Resort hotel than you do if you booked a reservation and you're just pulling your car through. I'm just telling you the facts. I've stayed at almost every Walt Disney World Resort hotel. My car has never been checked once. So, and you know, there's a lot of other speculation out there. And you know what? I'm going to toss mine in the hat. I think that ultimately this is about cutting back on transportation to Disney Springs. So I know that if you aren't a Disney Springs regular like I am, you might not realize this, but Disney Springs transportation, bus transportation more specifically, has always been lacking. It's always been like just enough to get by. In fact, Disney Springs often has multiple resorts sharing one bus. So a great example of this is like Yacht, Beach, and Boardwalk. They all just have one bus. That wasn't always the case, but it is the case more often than not now. I don't know if it's the case currently, given that they're going this route. And sometimes when things are busier, they'll deploy more buses. But Disney's been cutting back on a lot of things, and they do it in a way that is unmatched when it comes to a misdirect and when it comes to creating the narrative that they know fans are going to perpetuate, you know, with that magical thinking that we talked about. A little bit of pixie dust in the eyes, and before you know it, the cycle repeats itself. The cycle that Disney, I'm sure, is well aware of, you know, where fans refuse to point the finger at Disney for the decisions that Disney's making, and instead they decide to blame someone else, like content creators, for having the audacity to talk about the option to begin with, and that's why they took the option away, and blah, 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 blah. You know, like, you've heard all this before. We've talked about this before. We've seen it before. Why are we all pretending that this isn't the way that Disney does things? Now look, I know there's at least one of you out there who's cracking your knuckles and gear up to tell me how this is all fake news and I'm just a typical content creator jumping on the drama. First of all, define jump, bud. I'm like a week late to this discussion, so I'm certainly not jumping on shit. But also, that's not why we're having this conversation. My main focus is to get you to think. Ask yourself the question of if you're sure that that change would serve you in the way you think it would. Or would it actually hurt you? See, I don't think the people who are as loud about wanting this to be permanent are sure of that. And I don't think they were sure of it with Magical Express, with Genie Plus. That, by the way, was when people wanted to go back to the original Fast Pass option, which is exactly what Genie Plus was. It was just paid, but that's a whole discussion for another day. They weren't sure of it with Lightning Lane Single Pass or Multi Pass, and I honestly don't think that they're sure when it comes to this. Again, temporary change for now. Goodness knows, by the time this goes up, it might already no longer be the way that they're doing things at Disney Springs, but that's not the point. The point, again, be careful what you wish for.